Hey, thanks for listening to this new episode of the Business Fun Podcast. I just realized as I was about to hit record on this one that this is episode number 251, and that's a lot of time between me and you. So thank you. I really am so grateful. My guest today from Cash or Trade is Brando Rich. Before I tell you about my conversation with Brando, let me remind you to check out my website. That's davewakeman.com. Get the Talking Tickets newsletter at talkingtickets.substack.com and join our Slack channel. That link is in the show notes. Okay, back to Brando. So Brando tells me that Cash or Trade started out as a passion project. The way he tells it, it's like that magic sort of moment where you're looking for a single somewhere on the street or in the parking lot or whatever, and you're able to get it. That's the foundation of this, and it's great. Because I kind of really appreciate this. And we talk about kind of like being fans of Phish and the Dead and Pearl Jam and having that sort of experience. And so Brando has been able to turn that kind of feeling into a business. So we talk about slow tickets. We talk about how the business has grown. We kind of talk about the new iteration of the business, fixing tickets. We talk about how do you create this kind of community. We talk about how the secondary does have value. We talk about, the costs and challenges of an empty seat. We talk about innovation and community, different tools. We talk about some of the legal aspects of ticketing. We got into a lot of stuff, kind of a very wide-ranging conversation. I think you're going to dig this one. This is my conversation with Brando Rich on the Business of Fun. All right, I want to welcome Brando Rich to the Business of Fun. Brando, how are you?
I'm great, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I was. This is interesting that we're talking because I told you I didn't do a tremendous amount of research because as soon as I did, I started to figure out like I was gonna like cover the same territory everybody already did, either inadvertently or inadvertently. But one thing that was awesome was I saw that like the creation of Cash or Trade was really fueled by stops at Starbucks during the Phish tour. And so you are the second big Phish fan that I'm going to have talked to today because earlier I was talking to Josh Litwack from Quantizer, and he was telling me how he has gone to 106 Phish shows.
Nice.
So jam bands, that's like your thing. Tell us a little bit about Cash or Trade.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. Cash or Trade was a passion project from the start. A little history here is just that my brother and I were web designers and fans. We, grew up seeing the Grateful Dead and went on tour to see the band Phish. And, back in 2009 or 2008, when tickets went on sale for Phish's reunion after a 5-year hiatus, tickets sold out immediately. And they were listed for like $2,000 on StubHub. And, having grown up seeing live music since I was 14, so, somewhere between 93 and 2004 when Phish stopped playing, tickets felt different. There was a number of times we stood in line at brick and mortar box offices, camped out even sometimes, got in line with a number. Different places had different systems, right, to ethically give you a chance to buy tickets in line. And, you'd go up, there'd be a maximum allotment. Maybe you could only buy 4. And, maybe there was a broker in front of you or something, but you wouldn't really know. And everyone was just buying a few tickets and walking out. Then going to the Grateful Dead shows at a young age, we realized that there was this massive economy that took place in the parking lots. Not only were people buying food from one another or beer, but they were swapping tickets, trading tickets, selling tickets, amongst everything else. Of course, drugs in there too, right? But it was a wild experience to see the economy that happened in a parking lot and how much fans would support one another to
Yeah.
help like friends get into the event for face value or less even. The
Hmm.
whole idea of like a miracle ticket, where people would be like, I got miracled, got a free ticket to go into the show, you know? That stuff just amazed us. And it really built the community around an event.
Yeah.
And and they made it work and they found ways to make it happen. So rewinding back to like the Phish tour, you know, from 2004 to 2009, there was this 5 year gap that Phish didn't play, and I wasn't seeing a lot of live music at the time, and it just felt so different. And then we looked back on it and said, "What the hell happened?" And we realized that, well, in 2004, the internet was, you know, really just getting started. I mean, you know, had my 2400 baud modem back in like 98 with Windows 95, Windows 98 or whatever. But you know, Facebook started in
Yeah.
2004. And you know, StubHub started in the early 2000s, was gaining steam. I think maybe StubHub really gained steam in 2004 because I remember Howard Stern was going to satellite radio for the
Uh-huh.
first time.
Yeah.
And StubHub invested heavily in marketing with Howard Stern. I was hearing it every morning
Yeah.
as I was building websites in northern Vermont.
Yeah. StubHub, Tickets Now, all of those sites, Ticket Network, they all were kind of,
Hmm.
2004 was kind of a tipping point. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about that. Because I remember that. Like, I remember being in an office in Times Square when Howard Stern, like, threw himself he left terrestrial radio, and there was like huge events. And yeah, the StubHub was everywhere.
Mm.
Tickets Now was, I think, bought by very shortly after, bought by Live Nation and Ticketmaster. Oh yeah,
Hmm.
that was a tipping point. It changed. I think, like you said about felt different. It
Mm.
changed a lot of stuff because it became, even if you were involved in the secondary market or around the secondary market, use the secondary market. It changed everything because it became uh, less personal, I think is the way I would put it. But I'm curious
Sure.
because you kind of brought up how things had changed during that time. So I'm curious, like what was it that what felt most different for you?
Yeah. Well, I guess the fact that it became really hard to obtain tickets because it was wild west of the internet and brokers were exploiting it drastically with bot programs, auto listing programs, price matching software. You know, it was just, you know, and it still is happening today, but where the average fan, their chances of scoring a ticket were less and less and less, and brokers would buy up large swaths of tickets and auto list them over to StubHub and other
Hmm.
secondary platforms for, you know, obnoxious prices with obnoxious fees. And it just like it made it so the average fan couldn't really score a ticket to their favorite artist anymore, unless they wanted to pay like, you know, through the nose
Yeah.
for this event. And it that's what changed, and that's what felt so different. I had never heard about a ticket going for $2,000 before in my
No.
life
No.
until this time, and it just made it so marketplaces could absolutely scale in that way. You get more visitation, you can start to drive demand, you can start to inflate prices. Um, you know, it's this is still happening today, but even back then in 2009, there was speculatory ticketing
Yeah. Oh yeah.
where brokers are listing tickets that they don't even have. So it would raise the demand and inflate when they don't even have the product to sell. So there was a lot of things going on at that time, but to any average fan who went from 2004 to 2009, who went to go buy a ticket, it was like a slap in the face.
Well, what's interesting to me about the answer you just shared was I feel that like in around 2004 or wherever this kind of change happened, it's like it took the platforms and the technology took the humanity out of the purchase process and turned the ticket into a commodity where it had not ever been a commodity before. Like it was just a yeah, I remember standing in line in Fort Lauderdale at the Blockbuster Music, and
Mm,
and like there would be I'd skip school to go get tickets to things and like all
yeah.
kinds of stuff, right? Because a kid in the '90s, I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I cared that much about my grades because I didn't. I was like more worried about getting the shows,
Uh-huh.
but it took the humanity out of it, and so because it was a faceless, nameless, like sort of like
Yeah.
computerized, digitized thing, it became easier for people to think of these things. Like, forget that there's people going, like, Brando and Dave are going to see Phish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it's like going, what's the most I can get for this thing, right? And it seems. You talk about it still going on. It seems more pervasive now. It seems like a cross. It's like but it's like a cross cultural thing where everything is financialized and commoditized, and
Mm,
just the humanity is leached out of every touch point,
yeah.
which I know is kind of the opposite of what you're doing because you built this platform so that it's more people, person to person, kind of fan to fan. Is that am I doing you justice when I say that?
Absolutely. That's the goal of Cash or Trade. So when we built this in 2008 and launched it in 2009, we launched it as we went on Fish Tour and we set up a table in the parking lots with a tent. We held a bulletin board where people could put up post-it notes. It was our low tech version where they could say what they had and what they wanted, and people would meet under the tent to exchange tickets, either trade or pay money, but only face value or below for tickets. And we provided a safe place for them to do that. We marketed our new app. At the time, it was called Cash or Trade for Your Extra .com. And we got that because that's what people said at the Phish shows and at the Dead shows is they held their finger up into the air
Oh
and they
yeah.
said cash or trade for your extra. And maybe they had a burrito to trade or a hat or maybe they had some drugs. Who knows what they had, but they had something to trade or cash. And we thought that was so cool. And we just felt that like we wanted to mimic what was going on in the parking lots for people to obtain those tickets. So we built this very social platform. It was a little more bulletin board style at the time, but people could go on there, pick an event, and make a post saying what they had and what they wanted and whether they were willing to give up cash. And it became like a way for them to communicate through the app with other real fans. Now, as they transacted, we kind of followed the model of the times. It was 2009, so it was like Craigslist, eBay, Facebook. We looked at those three apps and said, let's combine these into one. We liked the chronological feed of Craigslist. You see the posts
Mm-hmm.
by day, and then Facebook had like the socialness where people had a face and a profile photo and a photo and like more information about them. And then lastly, like eBay really brought reviews to light, where everybody
Mm-hmm.
could be reviewed. So we kind of smashed all those things into this bulletin board style website. And that's where we launched. And now people were starting to use it and building trust amongst a community of people where their username got recognized, their profile photos. They started to become friends. We built in a friending feature, like similar to Facebook. And people started like literally making friends and trading tickets. And we did it for a decade as a hobby, as we built websites and snowboarded in northern Vermont and went to see live music.
Yeah. Let me
Um,
ask you about this then, because you said there's a trust in community, and you mentioned that earlier, even with the original like low tech version where you had a table set up.
mm.
Um, how much policing did you guys have to do? Or was it really like in the purest form, everybody was policing themselves, and because I'm sure a lot of people, the idea and the concept you're talking about is going to seem foreign to them because it'll seem so different than what how things exist now. But I know that it's still kind of at the heart of the mission of creating something that's a little more fan and artist friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as it grew, we did have to put in some protections. So we built like a reporting feature because it was like a social network. So we absolutely realized that people wanted to, in order to continue the volume, we weren't going to be able to approve every post.
Right.
So instead, we gave the feature for other members to flag. And then if they received so many flags, the post would automatically get suspended. And what we found was, and then a support ticket would go and they would get reviewed and go through a process to verify their tickets and verify the price. And what we found was that the community was absolutely rabid. So I mean, it actually became difficult because people would flag like, anything that was like a dime above face value. Um, so that's kind of what we had in place for a long time. And eventually in 2019, I sold the web design firm and I turned full time to cash or trade. And, I wasn't making much money, but I figured like, yeah, see what I can do with this. And, the first thing we knew is in order to protect the transactions, we had to move payments in house. So we could hold on to the funds and only pay out the funds if the tickets were received. So we built in the escrow and insurance platform. So we started to take payments in-house and pay out those funds at the necessary time, whether it be when the tickets are received or after the event. So we were off to the races, sort of on this newfound platform. We developed and iterated it on over time. And then we started to partner directly with artists and festivals. We partnered with Billy Strings, Summer Camp Music Festival, and they started to link to us directly, and we built massive groups on social media sites like Facebook. Eventually, we had groups for every single state in the nation. And we really rallied these real fans around the product as a way to stay protected. On social media, there's so many fake posts all the time that we encouraged people to include a cash or trade link so they knew they were protected and people could gain reviews and build on their profile. And I guess one piece I didn't mention was that there was a messaging application in the app. So people would not only connect with each other, but they would start to chat and communicate and become friends like that. So they felt better about transacting.
And so you've got a bunch of partners, a bunch of artists and festivals that have partnered with you. Um, you have this model where you want to put the fan and people first. Um, how much of so everything is face value or below? Is that accurate now? And if
Yes.
so, I can already see my inbox filling up with tons of brokers talking about like, well, you're just cutting out the free market. Um, what do you have to say to that? Because I mean, and frankly, I don't buy the free market argument myself. I think it's kind of nonsense because it's like, like I can't actually go out into the world and like find a market, go digging around in the dirt in Rock Creek Park behind my house. What would you have to say? Like, why is this a better model for people?
Well, let me say this. Like, I was just a fan building a site for other fans, trying to do what was happening on the parking lot and trying to support other fans, not rip each other off. You know, that was never the goal in it. People weren't trying to profit off of these communities. So that was our goal getting into it. And, I've learned a ton about the ticketing industry since those days. And it is the most complicated business and industry that I could ever imagine. There are so many artists, festivals, venues, primary ticket companies, secondary ticket companies, brokers, uh, artist management, promoters, if I didn't say that already, venue owners. Like it's just everyone's really, merch businesses. Everyone's like um, in in the same boat around an event, and everyone's trying to find revenue out of it, you
Yeah.
know? And it's because of that, it kind of like exploits the model a bit because everyone's trying to find their cut. I think where the industry gets upset is when brokers come along who haven't participated in that industry whatsoever to make that event occur are the ones who are just moving the tickets off the top and selling them for profit and gaining the most revenue. And none of that goes back to the event. So I think that's where the industry is mostly rubbed the wrong way from the brokering that occurs. Um, and you mentioned you had a lot of people from the UK, and they're passing bills right now to keep tickets at face value. I'm part of the NEVA organization and on the steering committee of Fix the Ticks, and we have legislation in a number of states and in the House and Senate that also sort of reflect some sort of price capping model to provide to keep the monetization within the industry rather than outside where it just gets like exploited. I will say this, like I obviously have some judgments, but at the same time, like it is a complicated industry and this is our model,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of different models out there. There's a lot of flavors,
Yeah.
StubHub might be the furthest model from it, where it's like you can not only have like 35% in fees, or more,
Yeah.
but you can also have the tickets marked up. The tickets can be speculatory. They're not even real tickets. Yeah, it's like I would say if you were to draw out like an extremes, like a timeline where of extremes, like StubHub could be on one end of that. I don't know if Cash or Trade's on the other or somewhere in the middle, but we're just trying to keep it a very fan-friendly place for fans to transact with other fans. It's not a place for brokers. The margin doesn't exist there, and yeah, we have a number of tools to keep it amongst fans only. And it's slow ticketing is really the
Okay.
thing. I mean, you can go on and use a bot and buy up like many tickets very easily. Cash or trade, like you have to communicate, the seller needs to pick you. So you could be one of 1,000 people replying to a ticket, but only one person is going to get picked. And you could reply all day long, and you'll be lucky if you score one. Like if it's a high demand event, that can happen.
Yeah.
And it's just similar to like waiting in a waiting room on Ticketmaster. It's like if there's such a high demand, like only so many people can get through to buy. You know, but a lot of fans do get through and do purchase tickets, and they get them for face value or less. They make friends with the people they're buying their tickets from. They likely sit next to that person at the event and
Yeah.
share a beer together because somebody bought 4 tickets and their buddies can't go. So now they have two right next to them, you
Mhm.
know? So having that community and that face and that friendliness, and then they follow up and see each other in person, it really like builds that whole experience around it.
It's 100% true because my wife still laughs about we were at a show here, I believe it was at the Lincoln Theater in DC on U Street. and I ran into a guy who got me the miracle ticket to see Pearl Jam at Madison Square Garden. And so
Nice.
she was still like cracking up about it. She was like, she goes, everywhere you go, you know somebody. And I go, well, these communities are so tightly knit, and they're like so. Once you make a friend, you're like a friend till the end, you know. And it's like, yeah,
Mm.
you. It makes that picking like you have to pick somebody. It makes it important because if you don't want to have a beer with them, like you don't want to sit next to them for a show, probably. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. So,
so
I mean, as far as like free market, like, I mean, I'm a capitalist I'm trying to run like a socialist model in a capitalistic world, and that has its struggles, of course, but it is what it is. It's just a different model. It's not your click and buy website, so you could just click and score all these tickets and then, run wild with them.
yeah. So you did talk about some of the potential legislation and the way that like you can create an environment where some of the more exploitative actions are legislated for, and some of the more sustainable options become available. Um, what is like a good way of reforming the ticket industry look like? Because you said it was probably one of the more complicated industries to deal with, and and there are so many factors, and like including the use of technology to harvest tickets, those pricing tools that act
Mm.
to inflate prices, all these different things. Knowing how close you are to that aspect of the industry, what does reform look like from your point of view?
Well, I believe that technology is the solution. Yet there is some, regulation that we're a part of as well. Um, it should be interesting to see how it all shakes out. It does seem like the regulations are gaining attention as
Hmm.
states and governments are starting to make laws against what you can sell a ticket for and what the fees could be for those tickets. So that could potentially be revolutionary. I just think it needs to be done in a careful manner because the secondary does have value in this industry. I mean, not everyone wants to admit it, but the primary, events they find a lot of value out of working with secondary
Hmm.
platforms. They might like, they don't offer refunds, so they're able to, direct people to, ethical platforms where people can go sell their ticket for what they paid for and get their money back. And pass it to another fan to fill the seat at their venue, um, and you still gain the revenue off of having that head in their venue, whether it's merch sales or beer sales or whatever. Not to mention fan experience. Like, you don't want an empty venue. You want to fill that venue. You want that fan to go home feeling like they had an amazing time and that they're excited to come back because you just built customer lifetime value, you know, rather than having 10 to 20% of your venue empty for those who couldn't go or didn't go or whatever. Um, cuts down on chargebacks that people might issue to
Hmm.
the venue or to the primary ticket company. Um, it helps people sort of price out their tickets and help determine demand for certain events. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of value in the secondary market. So it just needs to be carefully managed, that whether it's regulation or technology, that like, it's not being stifled. We got to keep enough room for innovation.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because if there's no competition, there's no innovation. That is true. But when you say technology can solve this, there's so many people that say, "Oh, there's no way to fix it." What kind of solutions are there from a technology standpoint? Because I believe that the technology already exists to like stop some of these um, some of the worst actions. And I just find that like a lot of times, like you said, there's a lot of people who find value from working with the secondary market and they just don't want to admit it. So then I find that like some of this stuff just doesn't happen because it's not beneficial for people. So they'd rather just say it doesn't happen. Can't do it.
Yeah, there are tools out there that are, making it more difficult for bots or brokers, to score tickets, and face value exchanges are occurring where, either tickets aren't transferable or something like that. I mean, it definitely makes it more difficult. I think the rise of platinum ticketing has changed things quite a bit because they are increasing the market value of the ticket, making it less profitable for a broker to purchase those and sell them elsewhere. So yeah, there's a number of tools that are out there to kind of keep, basically just keep the revenue in the industry more than outside of it. But it's probably some kind of happy medium between technology and regulation. But you sometimes you just you got to make sure the regulation is adjusted in a way where it still can't allow innovation.
Yeah. And when you talk about innovation, right? Like what are some of the past innovation, like some of the things that you want to see innovated on? Because I mean, what you're doing, I find to be um, pretty innovative because it's like a way, it's helpful in creating that sort of environment. And especially, I like the way you call it the miracle ticket, right? Making that happen again. So what are some of the other innovations either like you're looking at or like you're hoping to see happen over the next like, little bit? Because I feel that like there's going to be a lot of change around tickets in the industry over the next like year to 3 years.
Yeah, so innovation in the way of like more fan friendly tools, um, and face value exchanges, keeping stuff within the ecosystem, that sort of thing is kind of what I'm thinking of. Maybe there's new ways of ticketing and transferring tickets and providing like identity validation and such. I think the events, see their seats as like a license rather than a ticket, where they like rent out the seat for a moment rather than selling it. Um, so I guess that's all. That's kind of what I mean. You just have to allow companies like ours to be able to create technologies in different ways to go about things where you can like allow fans to participate in like a community where they can like see the events they care about most.
Okay. All right. So let me wrap it up then with this question. We started out with like how you came up with the idea traveling around with Phish. Um, you followed the Grateful Dead around. I can see
Mhm.
like you're kind of into the jam bands. Um,
I grew up in that space, but we've scaled cash or trade well beyond the jam band scene.
that's okay. That wasn't the question was going to be more like about you personally. So now, which band have you seen the most, and which one did you like the most? And then what part of their experience have you most wanted to translate to cash or trade?
Um, Other than Fish,
You can say whoever you want. Like I said, this
yeah.
is the second big Fish fan I've talked to today, so I'm all in.
Yeah. Well, I've seen hundreds of Fish shows over 30 years, just about. But so obviously it started out of that community. But we have partnered with many artists, including like Tyler Childers in more of a country aspect with like Margot Price. And we've partnered with like Sylvan Esso at one point in a little bit more of an EDM space. We've partnered with MJ Lenderman and Billy Strings, kind of like the bluegrass, and MJ more of like indie. Um, they might be Giants, Little Feat. I mean, the list goes on. So we're really just trying to work directly with the artists, also the festivals and the venues, to create like direct partnerships where we can work with them to protect their fans, provide this resale opportunity, and keep the tickets at face value. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just making sure that like you can do that, hold that finger up and like have the chance at that miracle ticket. That would be a W. I mean, I think
Yes.
it is too. I think that's like one of the coolest things about any artist when you have a community is like you can make friends for life.
Yeah, if you have an extra ticket and you can't go and you just want to pass it on to somebody else, you absolutely can post it on Cash or Trade as a miracle ticket for free, and pass it on to somebody else and hook someone else up. Yeah.
So
I mean, the essence of Cash or Trade is like if you had like courtside seats or something, like, some people might run to the secondary to go post it to say, oh, I can make some money. But the
yeah,
average person who buys tickets, who's excited to go to an event, is excited to go. And when they
yeah,
can't go, they're like bummed. And they're not necessarily looking to go become businessman and play and spend all the time and effort to make like 50 or $100 or something. Often you'll see them post it to their Facebook or something, pass it off to a
yeah.
friend, and hopefully they get their money back and it's all good. Somebody else goes, dude, how was the game? Like, oh, I sat courtside. Thank you so much for the tickets. Like, that's what people love to do. Like what we tried to create the platform to do that very same experience there.
Yeah.
Like I get brokers are looking to buy up the tickets and bring them over here to make a profit at like scale and do it at large. This is definitely more of like you're not at scale, not at large. And it's just kind of like, hey, like I got an extra, I can't go. Let's find a good person to pass it to. So.
Yeah, I dig it. It's like slow ticketing. I like that idea. I like the idea of recreating that sort of parking lot tailgating experience online, right? And
Mhm.
I know that like all these experiences you talk about, like I took a guy who's been a friend of mine now for God, I don't know how long. Mike Turley, though. Shout out to Mike Turley to a Mets game because they were playing the Padres because he loves the
Mhm.
Padres. And he was like, bro, can I at least buy you a beer? And I was like, no, because the beer's included in these things. And we've been buddies ever since. And he was like, he still tells people the story every time we're together. It's amazing.
Nice.
So like bringing people together, that's like, that's sort of like the heart of the Business of Fun podcast and like a lot of the work that I end up doing. So I
Mm.
dig what you're working on, and I really appreciate having the chance to learn a little bit more and share that with the audience. Where can people find you on the internet?
CashorTrade.org.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks for doing this, Brando.
Thank you so much. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Let me know what you thought about my conversation with Brando by sending me an email to my name, Dave, at davewakeman.com. Make sure you check out my davewakeman.com website where you'll find all the things you need to know. And get the Talking Tickets newsletter, which is at talkingtickets.substack.com. If you are listening to this podcast, I think you'll dig it. We also have the Slack channel that I've been very much pushing lately because there's almost 400 people there, or by the time you're listening to this, maybe more than 400. It's great. I'm going to find some ways to get people more involved this year so that the action happens as much in the general group as it does in my DMs. I think I know a lot of action goes down in the DMs. So I want everybody to have a little bit more fun and get a little bit more out in the open with it. But, there's 400 people there. It's great. As I mentioned, you're almost 40 something minutes into this thing today. So it means you love me. Thank you. And I love you. So, but do me a favor. Rate and review the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. This helps people find the podcast, encourages potential guests, and it's positive feedback for me, and I'm a sucker for it. Also, if you enjoyed what I talked about with Brando or with any of these other great conversations I've been putting out this year, do me a favor share one of them or all of them even, or as many as you think or matter to people that you work with, coworkers, friends, colleagues, whomever. Right? Again, also helps the podcast grow. It makes it more likely I'm going to get great guests like Brando. So until next time, thank you so much for being here, and I will talk to you soon. Take it easy.